My sister added me to the family group chat by accident. A chat I had never been in before. "Tell Kaylee that we're not celebrating Christmas this year," my sister wrote. My mom replied almost immediately. "Make sure she definitely doesn't find out." My brother chimed in casually, like this was already a routine. "Just tell her a different date, like last year." My dad didn't say anything. He just sent an emoji. I read all of it. And I simply sent one message. "Merry Christmas, my family. Your gift will be delivered by my lawyer." I sent it and put my phone down without even waiting for the read receipts. What was strange was that it didn't hurt. No tears, no breakdown, no familiar urge to justify them in my mind. Just silence. Clean, cold, clear silence, where suddenly everything made sense. Like last year. That phrase wouldn't leave my head. So this wasn't the first time, which means all those, "Oh, we just decided to keep it quiet. You probably couldn't make it anyway. Let's reschedule," weren't coincidences. They were a plan. Careful, repeated, convenient for everyone except me. I stood up, walked to the window, and stared at my reflection in the glass for a long time. I looked the same as always, composed, calm, maybe a little tired. The version of me they were used to. The one who solves problems. The one who pays. The one you don't have to invite, but can always rely on. And for the first time, I said it to myself honestly. They didn't forget about me. They made sure I wouldn't be there. My phone started vibrating within a minute. First my sister. Then my brother. Then my mom. Then all of them again, one after another. I didn't answer. I just watched the screen light up again and again, watched the notifications stack, watched their calm, their certainty, their control begin to crack. Because they didn't expect this. They expected me not to find out. Or if I did, to stay quiet, like always. But this time was different. I slowly walked back to the table, opened my laptop, and went into the folder I had been building over the past few months. Payments. Transfers. Contracts. Signatures. Receipts. Everything neatly organized by date. Everything, with my name on it, the house they live in, my brother's temporary loan, my sister's very important education, even my parents' insurance. I didn't do it for control. I did it because I believed that's what family looks like. Now I could see, it looked like dependency, and not mine, theirs. I opened my lawyer's contact and typed a short message. "We can begin." The reply came almost immediately. "The documents are ready. Delivery tomorrow morning." I closed the chat and shut my eyes for a second. This decision wasn't impulsive. It had been growing for a long time. Today, they just put the final period at the end of it. In the morning, they wouldn't just receive a gift. They would receive the end of the life they were used to. The house would no longer be paid for. The loans no longer covered, and most importantly, they would finally understand who I really was all this time. Not the convenient daughter, not the backup plan, but the person without whom their entire system simply stops working. And this time, I wasn't going to save them. The next morning, the first thing I heard was my phone ringing nonstop. I didn't even need to look at the screen to know what it was. Panic arrives early, when people realize they've lost control. I let it ring. Once, twice. Then silence. And then again. I finally picked up only when I saw the name, my mother. Her voice wasn't calm anymore. It was careful. Fragile in a way I had never heard before. "Sweetheart, what is this? What lawyer? What message? We think there's been a misunderstanding." I didn't answer immediately. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and only then spoke. "There's no misunderstanding." A pause. A shift. Like the world on the other side of the call had just lost balance. Then my brother jumped in the background. I could hear him trying to take the phone. "This is ridiculous. Are you seriously overreacting because of a message?" Overreacting. That word again. The same word they always used when I stopped being convenient. I set the glass down. "I'm not overreacting," I said quietly. "I'm correcting something that should have never been happening." Silence. Then my father's voice came on, low and controlled. The way he always spoke when he wanted to sound reasonable. You're going to destroy this family over a misunderstanding? That made me exhale slowly, not laugh, not cry. Just breathe out what was left of patience. You destroyed it yourselves a long time ago, I said. And I ended the call. Not dramatically, not angrily. Just ended it, like closing a door that had been left open too long. For the first time in years, my phone stayed quiet for almost 10 minutes. Then the doorbell rang. I already knew who it was before I opened it. My mother stood there first, hair slightly disheveled, face tight with forced calm. My brother behind her, restless, shifting his weight. And my father at the back, silent, watching everything like he always did when things stopped going according to plan. And beside them, a man in a suit, the lawyer I had sent. That's when I saw it in their faces for the first time. Real understanding, not confusion, not disbelief. Understanding. My mother forced a smile. Can we come in, please? Let's just talk like a family. That word again, family. They always brought it out when they were losing something. I stepped aside without a word. They entered like they still had permission. Like nothing had changed. We sat in the living room. The same room where I had paid for the furniture. The same room where I had transferred money for repairs. The same room where I had quietly built the stability they now sat inside. The lawyer placed a folder on the table. And suddenly, no one spoke. Not my mother, not my brother, not my father. Because paper has a way of ending arguments before they begin. I'll keep this simple, the lawyer said. All financial obligations connected to the accounts and properties in question will cease effective immediately. Any further use of funds without authorization will be considered breach of agreement. My brother scoffed. This is insane. She can't just... But he stopped. Because I finally spoke. I already did. That silence after my words was different. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was collapse, starting quietly. My mother turned to me. Her voice changed now. Softer, emotional, practiced. You're punishing us because of one chat message? I looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time, I didn't see my mother. I saw a pattern, a system, a habit of taking until resistance appears. This isn't about one message, I said. It's about every year you decided I wasn't important enough to invite, but important enough to pay. My father finally spoke. You think money is everything? That almost made me smile. Not because it was funny, because it was finally honest. No, I said. But you did. Silence again, this time heavier. My brother stood up. Angry now. So what, you're just done with us? I looked at him. Really looked. And something inside me stayed completely still. I was done the moment I stopped being a person to you. No one had a response to that. Because there was nothing to argue against anymore. Only truth sitting in the room with them. The lawyer closed the folder. That concludes everything, he said calmly. All notices will be delivered officially within the week. My mother's face changed slightly then. Not anger. Fear. Real fear. Not of losing me. Of losing structure. Of losing stability, of losing the thing they built their comfort on without ever calling it what it was. Dependence. They turned back to me one more time, all of them at once, as if trying to find the version of me that used to fix things. But she wasn't there anymore. I stood up, walked to the door, opened it. And for the first time in my life, I didn't wait for them to follow. The door closed behind me with a sound that didn't feel loud but final. Not dramatic, not violent, just final. And for the first time in years, I didn't turn back. I walked down the hallway, step by step, listening to nothing but the quiet rhythm of my own footsteps. No calls. No messages, no urgency pulling me back into their chaos. Just silence. The kind I had never been allowed to keep for myself. Behind that door, I knew what was happening. Shock. Denial. Anger. Then panic. Then bargaining. The same cycle I had seen my entire life whenever I stopped being useful. My phone started vibrating again before I even reached the building exit. This time, it wasn't just one of them. It was all of them. I didn't answer. I already knew what they would say. I didn't mean it like that. You're misunderstanding everything. We're family. That word again. Family. As if it was supposed to erase everything else. I stepped outside. Cold air hit my face, sharp and real, grounding me in a way nothing inside that house ever did. And I realized something simple. I wasn't losing anything. I was leaving it. 2 days passed. Then 3. Then a week. The noise didn't stop immediately. It changed shape. At first it was calls. Then messages. Then emails. Then silence, pretending to be dignity. My brother tried anger. My mother tried guilt. My father tried logic. And when none of that worked, they tried memory. Old photos. Old moments. Old versions of me they now needed again. But none of it reached me anymore, because something had shifted permanently. I stopped responding, not out of revenge, not out of emotion, but because there was nothing left to say in a conversation that had only ever gone one way. On the 10th day, I received a formal notice. Everything I had paid for, paused. Everything I had supported, frozen. Everything they had built on my silence, exposed to reality. And for the first time, the consequences were no longer emotional. They were structural. The house payment stopped. The credit lines were reviewed. The temporary arrangements my brother had relied on disappeared overnight. And suddenly, the life they called normal started to crack under its own weight. It wasn't loud at first. It rarely is. It was small things, missed payments, late notices, confused phone calls, arguments behind closed doors. And then the shift, the realization that no one was quietly fixing it anymore. Then came the final message, not from my mother, not from my brother, from my father. It was short, uncharacteristically short. We need to talk, not as parents, as people who made mistakes. I stared at it for a long time. That was the first honest sentence I had ever received from him. But honesty doesn't erase history. It only acknowledges it. I didn't reply immediately. For the first time, I didn't react. I thought, not about anger, not about revenge, but about truth, about what talking had always meant in that family. Me listening, them deciding, me adjusting, them continuing. And I realized something important. A conversation is not healing if only one side has been silent for years. So I finally replied, not cold, not emotional, just clear. You didn't lose me in one message. You lost me every time I was optional. I sent it. And I didn't wait. A month later, I moved, not far, but far enough, a place where my name didn't mean financial support, where my silence wasn't required, where my presence wasn't conditional. The first night in my new home was the quietest night I had ever known. No expectations, no interruptions, no invisible obligations sitting in the background of every breath. Just me, and silence that belonged to me for once. I thought they would hate me forever, but hatred requires connection, and connection is something they had already broken, long before I walked away. What remained was something simpler, distance, and consequences. Months later, I received one last envelope. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. From my mother. The handwriting was uneven. Less controlled. Less careful. It didn't ask me to come back. It didn't demand anything. It only said, "We didn't understand what we were doing until there was nothing left to take." I read it once. Then again. And then I put it away. Because understanding too late is still too late. That night, I stood by the window and thought about everything. The years of being useful instead of valued. The silence disguised as peace. The absence disguised as normal. And I finally understood something I had never been allowed to see clearly before. Leaving wasn't the ending. It was the correction, not punishment, not revenge, just balance returning to where it had always been missing. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't someone they forgot.